start the meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess. All right, I am going to call the Finance Advisory and Enhancement Committee for April 7th, 2021 to order. Roll call, please.
Committee member Cutler,
Here.
committee member Hillebrand,
Here.
committee member Hicks, committee member Henry, President Langfeld.
Here. All right, we're at public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the Finance Advisory Enhancement Committee. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes while the Finance Advisory and Enhancement Committee encourages input from residents. It may not discuss or act on any issue that is not duly noticed on the agenda. Did you receive anything?
I have not.
Okay. I don't think, if there's someone out there that would like to speak, now is the time. All right, let's go to general business. Discussion and possible approval of the March 3rd, 2021 Finance Advisory and Enhancement Committee minutes. Switched it on me so quickly.
Oh, sorry.
right.
Oh, I didn't realize
Yep.
you were reading off this.
Yeah, well, I have it on another one, but that's all right. All right. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from last month.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes at all? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. Let's just wait a few minutes to see if we get the other members to join. But I do want to know, are people wanting to still stay on Zoom, or would you like to go in person?
Zoom, please.
Either or.
Either or, okay.
I think we probably get a better conversation if we're in person, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tim, on that. I just, maybe we can wait maybe a month or two, maybe people feel more comfortable once June hits, you know.
Right.
But I'm with you. I think it's really hard to have good discussion on Zoom, but.
And I think
understand.
since we're a small committee where it's a lot easier to spread out to, you know, we have a good setup where we spread out during like plan meetings and stuff.
Yeah, that's very true. I guess the other is we're going to talk about all these, the first three that we've talked about. We'll be talking that we picked research we'll be talking about tonight and setting the future for those. I'm wondering what people's feelings are for the next group. Did you like this way of doing it, or should we do it something different? Now that we got someone under our belts, what are people's feelings on this?
This method worked fine for me. I mean, it gave two different perspectives, which I think is good. It's kind of like group reports back in the day at school.
Yeah. How about you, Tim?
Yeah, I think we only can ask, you know, trying to divide up more or further, or have the whole group look at something may just be more counterproductive, because, you know, what I've been doing is calling and getting the information and putting together, and that works great because one person getting the information from that municipality as opposed to 2 or 3 other trying to break it up and then put that all into one bucket, you know, where I have the bucket and I'm getting the information into it versus you putting something into it, and then we have to compile all that. So I like the way we're doing it. At least it works for me.
Okay. I think that's good to hear, because I kind of like it this way too. I think there'll be, when we talk about the capital improvement plan, then we'll probably want to stay as a group instead of breaking those out. I mean, that's just what I'm thinking. And Bobby, when do people have their draft CIPs put in? What's the timing on that? Just
I think it's May. That's how it did we because we redid it last year. We moved
yeah, I
it
know.
up a month. So I
So you
Probably
think it's
May.
as soon as May?
I think so, because I believe the chief talked about that last night during the public safety meeting.
Yeah, but I thought he was just talking about bringing in the experts for the May meeting. I didn't think he was talking about.
No, I think, yeah, maybe.
I- Well, anyways, I would think if it's May, then in June, we'll definitely want to start jumping into looking at that. And I think that would be more of a group discussion, kind of like with the policies, we have 2 more policies to review. So I'm thinking we'll bring for sure, maybe bring both of them to the May meeting. Because that's a group thing then.
okay, so send those out to everyone.
Yeah,
The last 2 policies.
why don't we do the 2 policies in May, and then we can talk about if people have interest in looking at some of the other things that were on that list, we can do that. And then June, we'll start the discussion on CIP. How's that sound?
Assuming that department heads are
Yeah.
stick with the timeline and get some
Well,
stuff to us.
understood. But if it's true May, that gives them all the way till June, so that's a month.
Yeah.
I guess, have we had anybody else join us?
Amalia just joined.
Hello, sorry, just grabbed some coaches.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just getting input from the other members on, how things are going and stuff like that. So we haven't started the presentations, but why don't we've already done the minutes, so why don't we go back to 2? And that's the presentation on the wheel tax. And if Bobby can just stay, with it, Deb and I will kind of go through it. And again, you've all had an opportunity to read it, so I'm not going to certainly read it to you. But what we have started with is the background. And we've identified the 3 types of vehicles. Well, first, it gives the state law that gives the authority for us to charge a wheel tax. And then we broke down what the types of registration is eligible for the tax. And then we also listed, so everybody is clear, the numerous types of registrations that are not covered or eligible for the tax. That would be the next part of it. And the state of Wisconsin, they basically collect the tax through the vehicle registration, and they charge 17 cents per plate as an administrative cost. And then we kind of looked at what we said, the numbers. So right now, the last count that Deb and I found, there are 13 counties and 28 cities and villages or townships in the state that collect a wheel tax. We listed the 5 that are in our area, which is Dane County, Arena Township, Lodi, Sauk City, and Madison. And we put in the numbers there. And there's about 3,200, I think it's 31,199 exactly, but that probably changes daily. So we went with about 3,200, which is right in the ballpark. And it just gives you that matrix, just gives you kind of an idea of the revenue that would be brought in with the charge of the $5, $10, $20, $40 and the administrative costs that would be tied to any of those. And then we looked at with the developments coming in, we jumped up the number of vehicles. So if there were 3,500, you can see the numbers, 4,000, 4,500. So the dollars are there in the matrix to see what would be brought in. And then in this year's budget, the 2021 budget, we have budgeted 50,000 for street maintenance and 100,000 for street replacement. So you can kind of see, using the table above, what could amount needed to cover some of the costs of what we put into streets. And then and this is where we kind of like input from everybody on the pros and cons. These are the ones that Deb and I agreed on. Deb has some others that she will probably speak about on adding to this list. So that's kind of what we're looking for today. I mean, it's input on any of this, but these are this is the pros and cons we're certainly interested in if other people have other ideas. And then I don't know if you had an opportunity, but that link is to a really good article on a summary of wheel tax, if you had an interest in that. And then I thought the statute that governs the wheel tax, so you can see how it's defined. It's fairly simple. So that's what we're looking at right now. What I would, depending on what happens tonight, if this is where people are comfortable with, what we would do is place this on the April board meeting as just a presentation and question. It would not be discussed at all, because we have a very, we start at 5 o'clock because we have board of review, and then the board meeting at 7. So we don't want to go deep into the night. So it would just end it where it was a presentation. And then if people had questions, we try to answer them. And then this would be worked into the budget process come probably August, when we're talking about operating costs, operating budget. So this would probably be part of the budget discussion. All right, Deb, would you like to add anything? Okay.
I'm not muted, right? I just don't see me at the moment. Okay.
No,
One
we can hear
thing
you.
I think that's important to put in here is, since not every person takes care of the bills for their house, what an actual registration bill looks like every year, because everyone starts at the $75 and then things are moved from there. When it comes to hybrids and electric vehicles, they are already paying extra due to not paying enough at the pump. So they have an additional $75 a year for hybrids and $100 for electric vehicles. So I have a hybrid, for example. My latest registration for 2021 was $188 between the registration, the hybrid tax, the wheel tax for Dane County. I think that's it. So it is a really regressive tax. And the article talks a little bit about how gas prices haven't been raised, or the tax on them, in 16 years. Who knows if that will ever get past our legislature, but unfortunately, that's where we're at with the money that goes towards streets. I don't know how much of the budget is already paid for the streets is already paid for. I think that might be through gasoline taxes. That might be worth noting in here. Because the way it's worded, it looks like we need all $150,000. And I assume the village doesn't need that whole amount since they have other sources of income. I did find something, I believe it was called a TUF, that could be considered an alternative to this. That would require more administration on the part of the village, but it would be based off of a formula that figures out your mileage, which would then be able to be applied to ATV, UTVs, motorcycles, collector cars, motorcycles, and everything else, which could be considered a more fair tax across the board.
What is it called?
I think it's called a TUF.
Tough?
Is it the transportation utility?
Yes, that one.
Yep, I think that's one of our other
Oh.
topics we're gonna research.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I
Okay.
watched
I
the
found that one.
webinar class thing on that a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and it seems more fair since every vehicle in town would get charged, including ones for businesses that are not necessarily registered in Cross Plains, but still on Cross Plains streets all the time. So, but the main things I think should be added is a sample registration bill to the information, just so it's all in one location. And the
Okay.
thought of $40 a year terrifies me, to be honest.
Well, sure. All right, I guess let's just go, let's start with the transportation utility charge. That's a separate one we'll investigate. So I don't
Yeah.
want to integrate it into this because it'll just confuse it. So that should be a separate report, and I agree we should definitely look at that. So I guess I'm asking the group what Deb is asking for, and it would be under con. We would share these added costs that are already tied to registration for electric and hybrid vehicles. That right, Deb? That's what you'd like
Yeah.
placed on there? All right, so what's the other members' feeling on that? Kim, I mean, if you don't have, if you're in neutral, that's fine too.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out, so you exempt the hybrid cars? Is that what you're saying?
No, what it would say under cons, under another bullet point,
Okay,
it would say hybrids and electric already have a surcharge of $75 and $100
okay.
on it, on their registration. Something to that wording, just to make people aware that there is other charges on those registration.
So would that be more appropriately put under a title of like the registration fee, just the information that's there already in place? It's not necessarily a con, is it?
Oh, well, that's another suggestion, putting
Yeah.
it in one of the paragraphs, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
a
just-
paragraph of this is how a registration fee breaks down for the average person would probably be
Oh.
good.
Okay,
Hmm.
okay.
It's just that
Because
they're paying it regardless, it's gonna happen. And you just put down, we're just letting the public know that as opposed to as well as the registration information breakdown.
Right.
plus, if using my father as an example, he lives in a household where his wife pays all the bills, so he rarely knows what anything costs. So
No,
when it's
no,
time to discuss it,
Was there someone else in there that I stepped on?
I was just gonna ask, what is the, and maybe this isn't for our group, what's gonna happen if it doesn't get passed? you know, if we
Well-
didn't go with something.
Well, to me, I guess we would continue to fund it the way we have right now. We're funding some of it through capital and some through operations.
Right.
So, I mean, there's another one out there which we were talking about, is that transportation utility impact fee. I mean, that would maybe be another source. We'd have to look at that, but to me, what this is I'm trying to get the information to board members so they have all the information. They can read this ahead of time, and then they can make some decisions on their own or check with neighbors or something, just so people know. Because when you hear wheel tax, of course, everybody's going to be opposed to it. Who wants more taxes, right? But I think if you build it into the discussion when you're doing a budget process, it's something that should be at least looked at. And there are some, like you say, it's unknown. I would, then the next thing is the dollar amount, and clearly there's no way I would go for what Madison did. They did the $40. I'm disappointed in Dane County, because in a lot of states where the county collects it, they actually divide it out to the municipalities within the county. They don't keep it all for themselves.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, and I'm thinking I'm going to we are kind of double dipping, right? The county's charging, and then if you charge, I mean, you look at people that live in the city of Madison, they're paying $68 on wheel tax, almost as much as they're paying for the registration.
Do you know if that includes like the every plates or like dealer plates from the?
No, if you looked at that paragraph, it only covers 3 plates, basically auto cycles, and I don't know why they have that. That's the 3-wheeled vehicle,
Okay.
and then the regular, and then the trucks under 8,000. So your pickups and anything over that, and they justify the larger trucks because they pay a lot of surcharges. They already pay a surcharge for roads. But like all those other specialty plates don't pay.
I did do an analysis and I can't find my notes, but I did just like the $20, the 64,000. So I took that off of the 2021 tax levy, and to see how much it would bring the mill rate down. And then I think if you had 2 vehicles in I think $275,000 home, which was kind of what Jed thought was the average in his report. I think if you had 2 vehicles in your household, you would save money overall, but if your household had more than 3 vehicles, you'd actually pay more.
Well, the problem with that is no one's talking about in here decreasing the property taxes or the mill rate. It's not a given that those will go down as well.
But isn't that kind of the thought? Is that we're replacing the tax
not in
levy with the
writing.
wheel tax?
Well, I mean, that is at least my intent, is to either reduce it or make it where it doesn't go up. Yes, I think it's just another revenue source outside of property tax. I think this state is extremely dependent upon property tax compared to a lot of other states. So it would be. Do you have that all written down, Bobby?
Does anybody else see the message of
Yeah,
needing to?
I'm texting Bill. He forgot to change the settings this morning.
Well, anyways, if you could get me that information, I certainly think that would be interesting to put into the report. And again, we are not, I mean, I'm guessing most of us would vote against this if this was up right now. That's not the intent of this. The intent is to just, it's a tool out there, and we need to educate basically the board on, the pluses and minuses of this particular tool. You can see there's 72 counties and only 13 have it. So,
Mhm.
it's not like everybody's jumping on that this is the save all for budgeting. And you look at, there's 28 cities, villages, and townships. So there's obviously a lot of them that are not using it. But then again, there's 5 in our area that are using it. So I think it's just, again, our committee is to just research and share.
I
So
think about the 5,
I think,
those 5 in our area, only 1 is in Dane County, who's already charging a tax, right? So Madison, if you live in Madison, you pay another tax along with Dane County, but the rest of those agencies are all, or municipalities are outside of Dane County.
Mhm.
is Arena
Yep.
outside? Okay.
So, and I don't know if their county, if Iowa County or Sauk has a wheel tax, but
I think,
Oh, I don't know that.
yeah, Sauk County. Well, I would be more comfortable if the things Bobby was talking about with the potential mill rate decrease being placed after how much it has been budgeted in 2021. That would seem like a good area to place it.
Okay, yeah,
So
I would
that
agree.
it looks like this, because right now, the way this is worded, it looks like it is on top of property taxes.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And
Yeah, we can do that. We can
I
do
mean,
that.
you'll never convince me if it is on top of my property taxes.
Right, right. I understand that. Yep. Yeah, we can do that. So what I'm hearing is we'll do a paragraph with explaining a little bit more of the costs involved in registration already. We'll also take what Bobby said as an example and put it under the matrix and make that a paragraph there. Does that sound good to everybody?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd like to say I'm not opposed to this, even if it was, a decrease in property taxes, but like the net was still an increase, because I feel like the village does need more revenue, especially since we're in some serious debt, it would appear. But my concern is around, if we're going to look at the transportation utility thing later, is that an overlap? Is it something that we'd end up double dipping, or it's like this is for normal vehicles and that transportation utility is only for the vehicles that this doesn't cover?
They're definitely separate.
Okay.
Not that I hear what you're saying on the double dipping. And again, I just have read a few articles on that. I thought that was more charged to lots when they're sold. Is it? I didn't think it was per miles, because I don't know how they collect that. I thought it was like the water impact fee and the sewer impact fee. I thought it was a road impact kind of, I don't know. Like I say, we'll have to search into that. I know there have been, like Baraboo has done it, but the town of Middleton did not do it. So I think I just don't know the reasons why Baraboo went with it and town did not. So again, I think it's one of those things that it's not the magic bullet to help with taxes, but I would look at it separately, but it would probably be brought into the discussion when we do budgeting, just like this would be. And we'd find out what would be the best for us, if either.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna put an extra tax on cars, I would be in favor of also taxing recreational vehicles that are using our roads.
Yep. No, I agree 100%. I was a little surprised how narrow the wheel tax is. I don't know why they don't include motorcycles, for example, and just because you get a wildlife plate, why you don't have, it's strange. I can understand the collector plate one because you only pay for that once and it's good for the lifetime of the vehicle, so it would be very difficult to collect it. But anybody that renews their license plate every year, then I don't know why, trailers and all that. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know the history behind that.
And if you think about it, things like the motor homes are doing more damage to a street than the average car. Granted, it doesn't move as often, hopefully, and
No, you're right. No, like I say, I agree. So here's what my proposal. I will try to update this and send it out to everybody. And if everybody's okay with it, let me know, then I'll put it on the board agenda for April. If we need to bring it back to the May meeting to discuss it, then I'll do that. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Why don't I do that then? And Bobby, if you can get me that information, that would be great.
Sure. I haven't heard back from Bill about the Zoom thing, so if we get kicked out, should I just restart a new meeting and everyone joins again, or?
Yeah, hopefully that won't happen. I don't know how many minutes we have left. but-
2 minutes.
Oh, 2?
Yeah,
Wow, okay. So everybody understands we may get kicked off and she'll start a new one, so we'll have to get back to our emails and join. All right, let's go to, let me just get my. I think we're at, is Jed on?
I am here.
Okay. You want to start us off?
Can you go to somebody else first and then I can prepare?
Sure. Tim, and we'll go to, well, do I have a motion then to move the item? Let me just get back up here. Do I have a motion to move number 4 up to number 3?
So motioned.
Second.
All right,
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All
Do
in
we
favor?
just want to log off before we start the next thing? Since
Well,
we're
let's get
down
this
to-
vote done first.
Okay.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, we can is that how you want us to do it, Bobby, or is it better for it to expire and then jump back? I'm just worried we're gonna log in right back at the same one with 1 minute left.
oh. Yeah, it just says less than a minute, so it'll take me a few minutes to get everything back up and everything, so.
All right, get something to drink or take a short break and then find your email and log back in and we'll get started again.
All right.
Good, thanks.
All right, start recording. Tim, you want to take it away then?
Sure. So we were working on the leaf pickup project, and so I did a little research with, there we go, a number of different municipalities around us, and it sounds like we're one of the few municipalities that do not do curbside pickup of leaves. Most of them use a vacuum sweeper pulled behind the truck and blows the leaves into the back of a special modified box, pick up the leaves, and then they take them out to their compost and dump them. Our current procedure is people drop them off at the village garage and dump them in the pile, and then the village employees will go down and pick them up with a tractor and a bucket and dump them into the pickup trucks and haul them up to the compost site. So we're kind of antiquated as to how we do it, but I guess I did contact Barnes Landscaping for a commercial contractor. He did come out and look at what McFarland does, and McFarland kind of does what we do. They have a large a large facility, like 10 times bigger than what we have at the village garage, where people bring their leaves and then they come down and they, being Barnes Landscaping, will remove them from that site at their convenience and haul them away. So really nothing different than what we do. And I think it may be a bigger problem because I think the guys on the weekend will push the leaves up and move them out of the way during the peak times. So the other company was Maple Leaf, and they never got back to me. They've never done it. They were interested. The other commercial company was, well, they do Monona and they do some Prairie and one other community, Waste Management. And basically what they do is they give the municipalities the dates that they will be in their village, and they go around and manually pick up open containers of leaves that the residents have set by the curb for pickup that day and haul them away. And they charge an hourly rate of $155 an hour to go through and pick up whatever time it takes. They have no clue how long it would take because they've never done it for us. So it's kind of, now I guess it wasn't Waste Management, it was Pelletieri that would do it. Yeah. So it's kind of one of those things that the only really benefit of having a commercial person do it is that somebody else is doing it. But I don't know if that is a benefit, because if we haul our leaves, if we have to do what Barnes wants, then we're no different than what we're currently doing now, except paying them versus our employees and using our equipment to haul leaves to the dump site. The big thing I think that these other communities that found out is the leaf blower or the vacuum works really slick as far as going around. It's a little time consuming. It does take two people because they have to have one obviously drive the truck and one to run the vacuum in the back. And that cost for one of those vacuums is like $60,000. And then we would have to modify the village trucks to accept the chute going in and containing the leaves. And also everybody I've talked to about that process is they do run a street sweeper behind it, because they pick up all the leaves that are blowing around and falling out of the vacuum when they're being blown through. So you could almost call it a 3-person job if you want to pick that up. The ideal way, the Cadillac way, is what sounds like Middleton and Sauk City might be going to, is they're buying a multi-use vehicle, and the vacuum and is a slide-off unit that goes in the back of the truck and container. And it actually has a steering wheel on each side, and they actually drive down. It's a single person operation. They drive down, pick up the leaves along the curb by themselves. The driver's driving and picking up the leaves. And the flip side is once they're done with the leaf collection, then they can take that box off and put a different attachment on, similar to our village does now with their dump trucks. So, but again, weighing the cost of $260,000, I think it was, compared to 60, and some modifications to our trucks, that the 60 may be a better option. I think, if we're concerned about keeping stuff out of the creek and stuff off the streets and everywhere else, then maybe we should seriously look at one of these units. I did talk your suggestion about people, will other municipalities borrow it, or can we lease it from them? A lot of them, their concern with that is it's a peak time when it's being used. It's not like using the street sweeper where you could use it next week because of whatever. When leaves are down and people have raked into their curb, they want them picked up. And so I think it's one of those deals where we just can't, they don't feel comfortable. Middleton won't anymore. They used to loan out equipment, but they won't. Another company, other municipalities said that's the issue they have, is when they need it, they need it. And we wouldn't have access to it. So open for questions on any of this stuff or concerns, or.
Well, I got a couple, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One is, I think there's a section in there that you have a recommendation. I'd like to kind of just change the wording so it's not a recommendation, it's just a option.
Sure.
Because again, I'm trying to keep this group where we don't do recommendations, because then people are going to question if we're looking at it 360 or just looking at it to get us. And then I understand Middleton, they probably use that during the fall all the time, but I'm looking at Black Earth. I mean, I can't imagine that they're using that every day in the fall. And I would like to just try I don't know, again, I don't know if it's feasible or not, but it'd be nice to do a pilot program for one fall to see. I mean, I'd hate to invest 60,000 and it turns out that it's way more costly than the current system, even though you're right. I do get almost every fall, I get calls from people in the village that don't have the ability to get the leaves down there. So I do feel that there's some obligation on the village to help those residents out. I would love to try to do a pilot program. And I guess for me with this one, the next step is maybe run it by Jerry Gray, get his input on this. And then maybe he has a buddy in one of those jurisdictions that would allow us to do it for one fall. And I'm thinking probably just 6 days in the fall, we should be able to get most of the leaves picked up in Cross Plains, do one in probably mid-October, one at the end of October, one in first week of November, then right before deer season. Because once the snow hits, it's pretty tough. So, 4 to 6 times we make that an effort where people can call in like we do with wood chips. I'd really love this idea and give it a shot, but I'm not sure I want to spend 60,000 for the vacuum. I see the truck that they use, for the wood chipping. So you're, 3/4 of the way there. You just need the back to probably be somewhat enclosed with screening and then a circle for the vacuum to blow the leaves into. Because I've seen, my neighbor has a private person come and that's what they do. So I don't know if it'd be a big expense for us to modify one of our trucks to, at least for a pilot program. I don't know what the group feels on that.
I just want to fess up, the recommendation piece was my bad.
That's all right. There's nothing wrong.
I went through and did an edit and it just seemed like all of the research kind of pointed to the fact that all the other jurisdictions around us have a, curbside leaf pickup. And, my thought was that if it's going to save us $10,000 to $15,000 a year, that 60,000 is going to get paid off in, 4 to 6 years. So yeah, no problem with changing that. But as I was kind of going through the wording and stuff, it just seemed like signs were kind of pointing in that direction.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. But one concern I would have about doing a pilot is just getting the word out to the community, because it just feels like so many things happen in Cross Plains that like the residents are just totally unaware of. So how are we going to communicate with people like, here are the 6 days that if you want to put your leaves on the curb, they'll get picked up?
Well, I think we got to do a full press, put it in the paper, put it in, our website, even do flyers if need be, talk about it as much as we can. I think word of mouth will go pretty good on something like this, because again, it's interesting. Not only do I get calls in the fall from people who need help with that, I've also gotten people who work down by the city garage there saying, holy man, they spend all day and they're hearing that beeping of the tractor backing up, and it drives some of them crazy that it goes on for so long. And they said it's got to be cheaper just to pick up the leaves from the curb than all the time that they spend down there moving that pile around or loading up the truck. So I'm getting it. That's why I'm feeling really comfortable that this is a good one, because I'm hearing it from people that need the service, and I'm hearing from people who are seeing how the process works and saying, hey, there could be improvements on that.
So one of the things that the Public Works Director, I believe it was Black Earth, mentioned is that they send their truck out almost daily during the season, the leaf season, because of the people who are gone for the weekend, or it comes Monday and they want it picked up because they just spent all weekend raking leaves and don't want them blowing all over the place, or the neighbors in their yard. So they have a little bit different situation. A lot of their streets are long and narrow and go north and south. So it's easy for them to send two guys out to run up and down the streets and not have a whole bunch of cul-de-sacs or subdivisions to deal with. I think that's going to be our biggest issue, is what do you do with, if you missed the day that they came through? Is it going to be a Monday? Are we going to commit to Mondays? And these are issues we probably won't decide here, but just in the whole process of what's going on, how that would work, because I'm sure you'll get more phone calls when people say, well, I raked my leaves all weekend long, and then they didn't come by, or they came earlier than they thought, and now they're all over every place again. So the public expectation is going to be great with this if we go forward with it, I think, my personal opinion. And if they take it down the street to clean up after things in Black Earth, I don't know if that's something we want to do here every weekend.
Well, here's my thought, during once, if we actually go all in on this, then I would think, it would probably be much more common, but I'm thinking in this pilot, we would say, and I think Mondays are a good idea. We'd say on Monday, let's say it's October 18th, we're picking up leaves. So then people have the weekend to rake their leaves. We pick them up. And yes, we already have the sweep cleaner out. I've seen a number of days now where I've seen them out. So I think they can, again, double up. You do the streets where we're picking up leaves, you do your sweeping.
And you brought up a point about the tractor going back and forth, and maybe people who want to get rid of the leaves right away, would we still allow that to be dumped at the village garage?
Yeah, I think at least during the pilot program, we would.
Because then you could almost use that vacuum to come in there and suck up those leaves that are there, and then it chops them up as well.
Yeah.
The trips would be less, the manpower, man-time, I would think would be less at the site even picking up leaves, because it's done by the vacuum.
Yeah, I saw that in your report, and that I said, man, that really makes sense. Absolutely.
Another thing to think about maybe though is like, I think it's a black walnut tree or something where or actually it could be the oak, where the leaves just don't come down until almost Thanksgiving. So there's like maybe a month or 6-week period where like different trees in my yard are dropping leaves. And I usually wait until the oak does, but sometimes I have to do like 2, leaf raking sessions that are weeks apart because of just when the leaves fall.
Right. And that's, I guess I would kind of tap in. I'm guessing village staff kind of knows when the leaves start piling up in their bins there, and they would give, but like I say, I think we can still do it in a 4 to 6 period. Maybe the last one is the end of November.
Yeah, or as long as the compost or the pile is still there for folks that have trees that don't drop until, really late in the year, to be able, because if there were only a couple of pickups and it ended, at the beginning of November, then I'd have to do something with the leaves that fall after that, so.
Yeah, I'm always thinking we'd keep the drop site.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else? So I guess I'll ask, so why don't we forward this to Jerry for his input? And if you don't mind, I'll put it in the format of the report, kind of like the wheel tax, so they all start looking the same.
Yeah.
If you're okay with that.
I am.
Was that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right. So for this one, I really like the work you guys did. Excellent job. We'll send it to Jerry, talk to him, and then I guess I'll listen to him if he thinks we can pull off a pilot or he thinks we should just go for it. And I'll try to get him to at least look into what costs outside the vacuum there would be on the truck. We might need to do, I'm guessing we just have to put a back on that lets out the air, obviously, and a hole for the hose to go into, but good job, really good job. And
You might be able to find out lease to own, or you lease it the first year and that. as
yeah.
well,
And maybe with all these cities going to this hybrid fancy one, maybe they'll have some real cheap ones. I'll start looking at Wisconsin supply or
Yeah, yeah.
surplus.
You don't like the 260,000 price tag?
Yeah. Anything else from anybody else on this? All right. Jed, are you ready?
Yes.
Well, why don't you go ahead?
All right. Sorry for being late. I had to work today, so I had to scramble to get back. So a little background on myself. I moved from Middleton a couple of years ago, and I felt like I was shocked by the tax amount. I was not educated. I remember when we went to our loan closing and, we asked what our tax bill was going to be. And my jaw about hit the floor when I found out how much it was going to be, because it was significantly higher to the other property that we own. And so I had always thought that the rates were high, but I had never really dug into it. So when Jay and I talked about divvying this up, I was really interested in comparing to the neighboring communities because I still own a property in Middleton. And so I just wanted to kind of see the differences. I was also interested because there's a house in my neighborhood that was paying like $1,000 a year less in taxes than I was for the exact same model of house. And so I wanted to figure that out. So I had a couple reasons of why this topic was particularly interesting to me. I'm going into two. So I had a number of conversations with village staff. I got a chance to talk to the village assessor once. And then, just some research online. The goal that I had essentially was just I'm on page 3, Bobby. The goal that I had was, if I took the home that I have in Cross Plains and moved it to one of our neighboring communities, what would it cost? I was trying to come up with essentially an apples to apples comparison. And one of the things that Jay and I talked about is, you have, you're taxed based on the assessed value of your house, but then there's a fair market value versus assessed value. And so, I kept trying to figure out how we could compare it equally and fairly. And I did eventually find this news article that had the numbers, that they created a formula to equalize that in Dane County. And so that helped significantly in the end. So one of the things that this quote I had in, I know Jay and I talked about taking it out, and I just literally didn't have a chance to get back to it. I thought about it many times. Basically, the idea here is that the home values continue to go up, which means the amount of taxes that we pay generally will go up unless the mill rate goes down. But given our fiscal situation, that's probably not going to happen. And with the reassessment in some of the homes, there's probably a number of people within the village who's going to pay higher taxes. Slide 5, I put that in just so people can see the changes in home prices. And so you can see the significant jump in home prices, which means there should be more money, which there's more value in the homes, which you should think that your property taxes would go down a little bit because there's more there. But it's that, to me, as they keep going up, you're going to start paying more unless the mill rate goes down. So when I first got into this, when I talked to the village assessor, I said, what is a high mill rate? What should I be looking for? And he said anything above 25 into 30 is something that gets high. He said, you'll see that in the Milwaukee area and some of the bigger cities. And so, my initial thought of this is, our mill rate at 21.65 didn't seem all that bad. And so, but I needed to break it out and figure out how that was calculated. So there's a comparison here on 7 that shows the average assessment ratio, some of just the numbers, population. I tried to find another village or a town or a city that was the same population or very close. The closest I could come was like 7,000 or 1,500. There wasn't really anything that was perfect. So there wasn't a perfect comparison there. And so you can see there on 7, when you look at the percentage that's going to the local municipality, we're at 38.77%. Slide 8, you see the breakdowns and where the pieces of the pie go. Slide 9. So one of the things that I wanted to do, because everybody has a different home value and everybody's trying to think of a number, I wanted to make it per 100,000 because I thought that was the easiest way for people to understand, and then they could calculate how it factored into their home. And so a $300,000 home, you're paying about $6,500 in taxes, and of that, $2,500 goes directly to the village. From the graph here on 10, what you can see is where the numbers fluctuate. In terms of the technical college, if you compare us to other communities, the numbers are virtually the same. And the numbers that we pay to Dane County is virtually the same. So the difference is what you're paying to the local municipality and to the school district. So that was referenced in 11 as well. That breaks those two down a little bit further. And you can see, how it changes from one community to the next. In 12 is really where the focus that we had. There are differences. I mean, your tax bill breaks out into 4 things: MATC, the school district, Dane County, and the village. But the only things that we as a finance and a village can control really is what's going to the municipality. And what I found versus assessed value, and you have to remember everybody's charging a different amount or a different assessed value. And I found that we were significantly higher than the other neighboring communities, but it still didn't give me an apples to apples comparison. 13, you see the changes over a 10-year period of time of the mill rate. So this is just Cross Plains' mill rate and how it changes. And then you can see on the right-hand side, the graph shows you what happens when we take Cross Plains mill rate out of the equation. And you can see that while we continue to increase, there was a big dip in 2018, and then the numbers kind of came back up to where it was. But I mean, in general, you can see that those numbers kind of decreased over the years, but the village's mill rate continued to go up. The quote here just basically references that it can be difficult based on assessed values and all the different factors to equally compare it until you can get a formula that compensates for that. So in 15, you'll see that the newspaper had this calculation that factored in everything that basically made it an apples to apples comparison from one community to the next. And essentially what we found is, we're paying 31.2% higher taxes just to our municipality than Middleton is. And 11.8% to Mount Horeb. So where you'll see some differences is, some of those will pay a little bit more to their school district, but ultimately we're paying more to our municipality. When you break down the numbers, Cross Plains ranks 14th out of the 20 villages in Dane County. The tax
Is that
rate,
where first is the highest or first is the lowest?
first is the lowest,
Okay.
20th is the highest. So Cross Plains total tax rate is higher than every other town in Dane County. We're higher than 4 out of 8 cities. And one of the things that I kind of thought going into this, because I talked to a few people from Middleton, and I just assumed from everything that I'd heard is like Middleton and Wanakee, because they have more people, that they can spread out the tax burden more. And, you know, there's also businesses that get factored into that. But then when I compared some of the other cities and noticed that, you know, we were higher than some and lower than others, you know, the population size didn't really indicate, you know, what the taxes were. Now, the other thing that this report does not factor in is it doesn't factor in what services we're actually providing. And I think that that's one of the things that Jay and I talked about is probably the next step with this.
Also, do our taxes pay off debt that the village has? Isn't there TIF debt or something that our taxes go to pay off? And that might be something that would be worth comparing across locales or jurisdictions if we can get that kind of information from other places as well.
We certainly can, but all these jurisdictions are paying off debt. That is a typical cost for any government agency. But you're right. This is where Jed and I talked about. The next step is this proves very well that we have high tax. What the next logical and what I always get asked is, why are our taxes so high? And that's where you have to dig into, you know, how's our debt service compared to other communities? Where are other communities getting revenue besides property tax? What services are we providing that they may not provide? So you're absolutely right. I feel the next step with this clearly established that we have high taxes. Now, I think the second part of this is why, and there's a number of ways of doing that, but I'll let other people speak first.
I don't know if it convinces me that we have high taxes. I mean, maybe the local piece of it is higher than others, but when you look at that summary sheet, we're 14 out of 20. We're not 20, and we're 4 out of 8 or something. I mean, it almost seems like, and when you compare it to the average this or the average that on the conclusions slide, it seems to me like we're pretty much right, kind of in the, sorry, I guess it wasn't the conclude. Well,
Yeah. Let me finish.
In the middle of the pack in terms of overall taxes.
Let me finish because I'm actually going to kind of refute that a little bit.
Okay.
So Bobby, if you go to 18, so one of the things that I did is, you know, because I went into this, I'm a journalist by trade background, and I went into this knowing that I probably had some potential bias because I just assumed up front that we paid higher in taxes, and that bothered me. And it was one of the reasons that I wanted to dig into it. I also picked only the communities that kind of butted up to us, you know, because those were the ones that I'm familiar. I wanted to know what the people right next to me pay, you know, because they should be about the same. We're in the same geographical area. So one of the things that I did is when I found out that we were 14th, I wanted to compare us to the worst tax village out of the 20, which was the town of, or the village of Brooklyn. And when you look at those numbers on 19, you will see that Brooklyn pays more than 50% less, 55% less than what we do to the municipality. The difference is they're paying an extremely high amount to their school district. And that's where the difference in the taxes make up. So while you say, well, we're only 14th, not 20th, we're paying, you know, they're paying more than half less than what we are to the municipality. Now, again, that does not factor in what services that you get there versus what we get. And that's an important distinction that needs to be rooted out. But ultimately, when you compare us as a village to all of our surrounding neighbors in Dane County, there's no way to refute the fact that we are paying higher taxes than everyone. And you can't say that just the businesses or the population in Middleton alone can make up for the 30% difference that we're paying in property taxes.
But we could look at the amount of debt per resident and see if that's higher here as well.
Well, yeah, I think we need to go, but we need to go deeper. Here's what my thought on the next step. While Middleton, they are much larger than us, but what makes it very intriguing to compare, on a ratio, obviously, or per population, is with them because we're in the same school district, and because the school district is covers so many different jurisdictions, they use the state numbers for value, equalized value, because they're required to make sure that everybody's paying their fair share. So we kind of have that already done for us. And we're all in the same county, so we're paying the same county, the same for Madison College. So it would be interesting to look at both of our communities, and we all have, I think we pretty much have a lot of the same services with police and with library, pool, public works. So we could look at, a ratio on what percent, for example, what percent of the budget for Middleton goes to the police department, and then compared to what percent of the police department in Cross Plains, what percent of the budget. Do that with every, category, and also look at where the revenues are coming in from. So are they getting, while ours, I think Jed found out we were at 28%, 29% of our revenue is coming from property tax. Is that it? What? No, 60 something. Bobby, whatever it is. I can't
I
remember.
do need to interrupt it. We only have a minute left before we're gonna get kicked out again.
Oh, for Pete's sakes. But anyways, I think with this one, we have to really compare, and Jed hits it. Why are we high? Where are we paying more than other jurisdictions? I guess I'll just leave it at that before we get kicked off.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see the more details on, where it goes to.
Okay.
That
Go
in
ahead.
this report, because we wanted to see if there was a reason to look into it. I thought we'd probably be average. I didn't think the numbers would skew so badly. And so I think it does warrant to look into the reasons now.
Anybody else?
I think we
Should
need
we
to look into
And
it. I
then
think it'd
log
be
back in.
a good idea to find out, again, is it our debt service because of two major projects of 14 and Highway P, or, why is it that we're paying so